It all began on a quiet winter morning, the kind where snow blankets everything in pristine white silence. I had just stepped outside to admire the road. I had spent countless hours building myself, every stone and inch carefully planned and constructed. It wasn't just a path, it was my hard work, my pride. But that morning, nestled in the mailbox among the usual letters, was something that made my heart skip a beat. An official-looking envelope from the HOA. I tore it open, half expecting a routine notice, maybe a reminder about dues. What I wasn't expecting was Karen, yes, the infamous Karen of our neighborhood, notorious for her relentless sense of entitlement. And she had written, or rather dictated, a letter that would turn my calm morning upside down. According to her, I owed the HOA a hefty fee for snow removal on the very road I built and maintained myself. I read the words twice, thinking maybe I had misinterpreted them. But no, the letter was clear. They claimed ownership of the road and insisted I pay for maintenance services I had already done. I felt a surge of disbelief, followed by anger. How could someone just assume ownership of what I created with my own hands? I looked out at the road again, glistening under the soft morning sun, and a mix of pride and frustration welled up inside me. It wasn't just about the money, it was about principle, respect, and common sense. I knew then that this wouldn't be a simple dispute. This was Karen trying to assert control where she had none, and I wasn't about to let her get away with it. I decided to document everything, from the original plans and construction of the road to the routine maintenance I had done over the years. Photos, invoices, even time-stamped videos. I gathered every piece of evidence that would prove this road was mine and mine alone. Karen, of course, seemed oblivious to any of this. In her mind, a neatly written HOA letter was enough to make her claim legitimate. By that evening, the tension had settled into a simmering determination. I knew that responding hastily could make things worse, but doing nothing was not an option. I drafted a measured response, carefully outlining the history of the road, my maintenance efforts, and why her claim had no legal or moral basis. Still, even as I typed, I could sense the storm brewing. Karen wasn't one to back down quietly. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. The next few weeks would escalate beyond letters and polite emails. They would test my patience, my resolve, and ultimately, my ability to stand my ground against a neighborhood Karen determined to profit from what wasn't hers. The days after sending my response felt like walking on a frozen lake, tense, uncertain, and full of hidden danger. I thought that with my detailed evidence, Karen might pause and realize she had no grounds. But of course I was wrong. Within a week, another letter arrived. This one thicker, more formal, and dripping with entitlement. Karen's signature at the bottom felt like a taunt. She was doubling down, insisting that I pay immediately for shared road services or face further action. I stared at it in disbelief. Shared road services? The road was mine. Every twist, every curve, every inch of snow I had shoveled myself. I had done it all, yet here she was, acting like a self-appointed overlord, demanding money as if my sweat and time were theirs to claim. My initial frustration began to turn into a strategic focus. This was no longer about being polite or reasonable. This was about protecting what was mine and showing Karen that no amount of audacity would intimidate me. Determined to respond, I scheduled a meeting with the HOA board. I knew that this wouldn't be just a casual chat. Karen had a reputation for rallying the board on her side, and I needed more than words to stand firm. I brought along my documentation, photos of the original construction, maintenance logs, and even a short video compilation showing me clearing snow, repairing minor potholes, and maintaining the edges over the past years. The meeting room was tense the moment I stepped in. Karen sat across the table, her expression a mix of smug satisfaction and impatience. She immediately launched into her prepared spiel, talking over everyone, insisting that the HOA had jurisdiction, and that my refusal to pay was a violation of community rules. I stayed calm, listening carefully, letting her overconfidence reveal itself. Then I presented my evidence piece by piece, narrating the story of the road's construction and maintenance. The room went quiet. Even a few board members leaned forward, clearly surprised by the depth of my documentation. By the time I finished, Karen's confident posture had faltered. She tried to interrupt, but the room had shifted. Her words no longer carried authority. They sounded defensive and desperate. I realized then that this battle wasn't just about letters or bills. It was a test of persistence, preparation, and patience. Karen might try every trick in the book, but I had the truth, and I had proof. As I left the meeting, a sense of cautious optimism settled in. The fight wasn't over, but the first cracks in Karen's strategy were visible. She had underestimated me, and that mistake would cost her. After the HOA meeting, I thought things might settle down, but Karen wasn't done. If anything, her next move proved just how relentless she could be. Within days, I received an email that made my stomach sink. She had involved a lawyer, an actual attorney, claiming the HOA had full authority over my road and that I could face legal action if I didn't comply. The message was polite on the surface but carried an unmistakable threat. Karen's persistence had now crossed into official intimidation. At first, I felt a surge of panic. Legal letters are intimidating, and I knew going to court could be expensive and stressful. But then I reminded myself, I had built that road with my own hands. I maintained it meticulously. No law or HOA rule could override the fact that it was my property, and I had the evidence to prove it. I took a deep breath, refusing to let fear dictate my response. I began consulting with a real estate attorney to understand my rights. The guidance was clear. Karen and the HOA were overstepping their authority. I also documented every new communication meticulously, timestamping emails, saving letters, and even recording a few phone calls where Karen made her claims. Every detail mattered, because I knew the next phase of this battle could escalate quickly. Karen, of course, did not wait. The following weekend, she arrived at my driveway, snow shovel in hand, making a show of assessing the road. Conditions. Neighbors watched as she stomped through the snow, muttering about fees and responsibilities. It was theatrical, clearly designed to intimidate me and paint herself as the vigilant enforcer of HOA rules. I stepped outside calmly, greeting her politely but firmly, and reminded her once again that I maintained the road myself. She glared, flustered that her intimidation tactic had failed. Over the next few weeks, Karen tried everything, sending multiple notices, asking for proof of payment for maintenance, and even involving more board members. But with each attempt, I responded with clarity, evidence, and calm persistence. The story that had begun as a simple snow removal dispute was now a test of patience and strategy. I realized this wasn't about money. It was about standing my ground and refusing to be bullied. By now, the neighborhood was buzzing. People whispered about Karen's antics and my quiet determination. Some cheered me on. Others warned me to tread carefully. But I knew one thing for sure. If I didn't face Karen head-on, she would continue to try and profit from what was mine. The stakes were higher than ever, and the final showdown seemed inevitable. The final showdown with Karen was inevitable. After weeks of letters, threats, and public theatrics, it all came to a head one frigid morning. I had spent the night reviewing every piece of evidence I had gathered over the years. The original road plans, invoices, time-stamped photos, videos of maintenance, and even detailed logs of snow removal. I wasn't just prepared to defend my road. I was prepared to show Karen and the HOA that I wasn't intimidated by anyone. That morning, Karen arrived again, her expression a mix of frustration and determination. She carried yet another notice, this time threatening legal action within days. I met her outside, calmly holding a folder containing every document that proved the road was mine and mine alone. Neighbors had started gathering, curious about the confrontation, some even offering support. Karen glared, clearly expecting fear or hesitation, but she found neither. I began walking her through the evidence, point by point, explaining the construction process, maintenance schedule, and legal basis for my ownership. The more I spoke, the more her confident demeanor cracked. She tried to interrupt, to insist on her authority, but I stayed firm, letting the facts speak louder than her claims. The HOA had no jurisdiction over my private road, and it was clear that her attempts to profit from it were baseless. By the time I finished, the silence was palpable. Karen looked around, realizing that the room, the neighbors, even some HOA board members, was no longer on her side. The theatrics, the threats, and the letters had all fallen flat. She had underestimated not only my preparation, but also my willingness to defend what was rightfully mine. For the first time, I saw genuine hesitation in her eyes, a recognition that this battle was lost. With that, I calmly suggested she take her concerns to the proper channels, if she truly believed there was any merit to her claims. Karen hesitated, muttered something under her breath, and finally turned to leave, her power stripped by the evidence I had presented. The neighborhood watched as she retreated, a quiet victory settling over the scene. Later that day, I spoke with the HOA, making it clear that any further attempts to claim maintenance fees would be challenged legally. It was the closure I had hoped for, a resolution that affirmed the principle that hard work, preparation, and standing firm against bullying could prevail. Karen had tried to profit from my private road, but I had stood my ground, and justice, along with common sense, had won. This experience taught me something invaluable. No matter how aggressive or entitled someone may be, truth, preparation, and courage are far stronger than threats or intimidation. And as the sun set over the road I built with my own hands, I felt a quiet pride, knowing I had defended not just a path of asphalt and snow, but my principles. If you enjoyed seeing me stand my ground against Karen, hit that like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more crazy HOA stories.